Hey, you wild women. Wow. Okay, so this week I completely bombed a recording. I'm talking full on video lag, freezing, forgotten lines, forgotten questions, awkward silences, you name it. The reasons why people fail or fear starting a podcast. I experienced all this in a single episode. But here's what's fascinating. A Harvard Business Review study found that 94% of successful entrepreneurs say they learned from their failures more than their successes. And that's not just the feel good motivation. There's actually a scientific reason why failure might be your biggest competitive advantage. And isn't just about business. This is about your entire journey toward what the Japanese call the ikigai, your reason for being. Every failure is actually a compass pointing you towards your sweet spot in life. I always think of these as like God's nudges, forcing you the right direction. And sometimes we don't believe it. We resist it so much that that's actually what causes burnout. So why is failure your biggest competitive advantage? You don't sign up to be a parent to fail. You don't sign up to be a wife to fail. You don't start a business to fail. But we know these things are inevitable at some point, that there's things in our parenting journey that we're going to do that was stupid. There's things in our partnerships that were stupid and we failed. Maybe it's your health. Maybe it is your business. Maybe it's keeping in contact with your friends and family. But here's the thing. It ends up becoming your best competitive advantage. You see setbacks and challenges, they are not just obstacles. They're actually the greatest teachers in this school of life. I know some of us don't believe that. However, all these missteps, all these trips, all these mess ups, they're vital experiences. Every failure brings you closer to a breakthrough. When we dare to take risks and fall short, we're not just failing, we're collecting data. And this is the data that's important to take that next attempt or to take that next step. Take Edison, for example. We all know this story. He tried 10,000 times to finally get it right in creating the light bulb. And then James Dyson tried over 5,000 times to create a bagless vacuum. Walt Disney, one of the most creative imaginations of our time, was fired from the newspaper because he lacked imagination and he had no original ideas. But all these people, they had conviction in what they were doing and they knew that they had to stay the course. I allude to this all the time about this podcast being a big thing where, like, the failure today, for example, I have a really nice camera set up for my YouTube, for my shorts, for TikTok, for Instagram. However, the iOS on my laptop is too advanced for the software that my camera needs to actually not have a lag. And my editor is like at his wit's end had tip to Joel, trying to edit these videos. And he goes, can you please just go back to your computer camera and that'll be good for now. And it's true. But I was like holding on to this, that I wanted it to be such clear video, that I was resisting this change because it felt like a failure for me to go back to my laptop's camera. And most people wouldn't even notice. But so this challenge made me question, like, what is really going on? Because we tried different cameras, cords, updating software, all this stuff, finally figured it out, is that the softwares aren't compatible. So it is what it is. And now I'm using this. Is it a big failure? No, but it's annoying because I'm trying to step up my podcast game. The most important thing is audio, and I believe we got that. So here's the fascinating thing about the examples of Thomas Edison, of James Dyson, of Walt Disney, is each failure, it wasn't just a setback. It was market intelligence that their competitors would never have done. Their competitors would never have kept going. While others were playing it safe, they were building an unbeatable advantage through their failures. So who do we know that could have used these lessons? I'd say Kodak. Kodak, now I don't know the whole story, but as we know, Kodak was like the company that created the cameras back in the day. And they refused to go digital. Although they saw it coming, they refused to create the digital version of their cameras. So then other companies came out and said, hey, we're doing this. And it ultimately caused their demise. So they were so insistent on maintaining what already existed that their ultimate failure because they failed to change actually became their demise. How was they didn't take the lesson. So failures, they create 4 or 5 things: adaptability, data, resilience, trust, and innovation, as we can see. It's also, like I said, a test from God, seeing if you're really fully committed to the challenge that's ahead of you. Is this something that you really want to do? He's guiding you in a way for a purpose. And if you give up too soon, maybe you won't know what the fruits of your labor will be. For instance, an example would be me and my agency, shutting down my last agency. While we were going through due diligence and it being acquired, I just gave up too soon. And it's a good thing too, because had I kept going, I would have gone into more and more burnout. So I believe that the failure in it, we always think like failure, I won't do this thing because if I fail at this thing, then everybody's going to think I'm a failure. Every single entrepreneur I know has failed. And it's the ones that are great that get right back on and they keep going. So here are some examples of why failure is so damn important. I don't want you to stop at the things that you have conviction in doing because you fear that you're going to fail. You're going to flop. People who never fail, they actually become rigid and boring, right? They take the comfortable route. They do the easy thing. They take the easy way because they so are worried about failing. Failure allows us to have rapid learning and adaptation, right? The only way to really know how to do something better is to go through it and potentially fail. For instance, when I was sued for wrongful dismissal, I would never just sit there and study what it's like to be sued for wrongful dismissal. And I went through it and I learned some key lessons I would have never, ever experienced in my life had I not done what I did. And lucky for me, it was not an issue, but it really crippled me. And I saw this as an insult rather as an opportunity to learn how we can be a better employer, be a better support for my team so that this doesn't happen in the future. Think about this too. Every time you fail, it is market research. You launch a new product, maybe a new lip color, maybe a new perfume line, maybe a new service, and nobody buys it because is it not great or did you not market it well? But whatever the reason, it's a failure. But what did you learn from that failure? You learn what others pay thousands to discover to do, right? I have a couple of friends right now that are going through some really crazy like separations and divorces. And I don't wish this upon anybody, and especially not these incredible women. However, it is God telling them that they have to go through this because they are going to be responsible for helping other women come through it as well. And so that failure is actually the best lesson. Like, think about it. Like I say, the best advice comes from somebody who has successfully done it before you because they failed and they learned what not to do. They learned what to do. So in that sense of like, you learn what other people pay thousands of dollars to do is the most beautiful lesson. So real world feedback beats theoretical knowledge. And can I please bring up my post-grad business school here versus actually running a business? At 17, I ran my first restaurant, my first business ever in the food industry. Kind of silly, however, successful. It is a grind to do well in the food and service business. That being said, I learned more in those summer hours as a 17-year-old operating that business than I did in 2 years of grad school. No disrespect to post-grad school, but a little. That sometimes theory is great as a foundation, but it's the action, it's the experience that actually gets you across the finish line. You can theoretically study everything there is to do about podcasting. You can study everything there is to do about running a big event or about running a PR agency or about running a cosmetic company. You can study it, but you won't actually know what is needed of you until you take action. And that action requires faith. It requires getting over your fear. It requires you feeling that there's abundance around you. It requires you failing. That's it. If you want to live a mediocre life and you don't want to fail, then that's what you can do. You can live in a closet. Failure to me, when somebody talks to me about the massive crap sandwich that they had to eat because of business or something in their life, becomes the most fascinating story. It also becomes the most compelling stories when it comes to pitching the media or being a guest on a podcast. Like, people don't necessarily want to know about all your successes. They want to know about your failures and how you overcame them, because those are the key lessons. If you're a coach in any part of any industry, the key lessons for the people that follow you are going to be from your failures or experiences from other people that you can share. It's not about all the wins and the constant grace and beauty you have in your life. Well, that's great. They want to know, hey, did you go through this before? That's awesome. How'd you get over it? Ain't that the truth, right? Like, my divorced friends have more in common and they can share their stories and provide support with each other than those that have never been divorced. That's just the truth because they've experienced it. So what should you do when something bombs? So what do you do when something fails? Whether you are screaming at your kids because you're overwhelmed, whether you're having tech issues, you can't get your expensive camera to actually run through the software of your computer. There's a thing called the FAIL method, FAIL, very simple. F stands for face it, A stands for analyze it, I stands for innovate and find solutions, and L stands for leverage the lesson. So face it is like breathe, seriously stop and breathe. Today, when I was recording an episode with an incredible entrepreneur, my camera froze halfway through the interview. And using this platform called Riverside, which I've had so many issues with, I digress. Anyway, I said, you know what? The probability of it being frozen as a final recording is very slim. So I'm just going to keep going if you're okay with it. And so we did. Guess what? The actual recording is me frozen. And because I put this on YouTube, that ain't good. That ain't good, but we didn't have the time to re-record it. So I checked off the box saying that's failure. So what did I do? After we finished recording and I went to look at it and I saw that it was stuck, I just breathed. I was like, okay, Renee, now's the time to actually do the work to get your camera to work with your laptop. What is the issue? Because we were kind of like tiptoeing around it. Now I said, this is it. Drawing a line in the sand. I'm going to figure out how this camera is going to work. Analyze it, document it. So now you document why you failed. What were the weaknesses? What is it that you can do to avoid happening again? And really, was it that bad? What was the magnitude of this again? So now I learned that the Sequoia iOS update is too advanced for the latest Canon software update. That's it. That is it. Now it can function, but it's so glitchy and it's really not worth it. So I said, okay, so here's the next thing is find innovative solutions. This is the 1-3-1 protocol. One problem, 3 possible solutions, choose the best outcome. So I'm like, here's the problem. The camera is not syncing to my laptop very well. What are the 3 possible solutions? 1, get a new camera. 2, use the FaceTime camera that I have built in to my computer that works like a charm. The con is that the quality isn't as great. And 3rd is, this was the crazy option, is to downgrade my iOS. And to do that I'd have to clean off my computer, completely reformat it and start again. So I'm like, I'm not doing that. So I decided and elected to go to using my FaceTime camera for now, and waiting to hear from Canon to see if they're going to update their software to allow this new iOS to sync with their cameras. Worst case scenario, I work for Martell Media. This studio has a lot of cameras. We will figure something out. I trust the process. So leverage the lesson, prevent recurrence. The most important thing for me now, the 10 out of 10, is that I have an unglitched video. There's no lag or delay, and there's no freezing. And we know, guaranteed, for the most part, knock on wood, 10 out of 10, the built-in camera on my laptop does a great job. So I'm leveraging the lesson to avoid this happening again. Very simple, right? So remember this. The person who has failed the most in your industry probably knows more than anyone else. They've seen what doesn't work. They understand why it doesn't work, and they've built something stronger because of it. Now, if they choose to use their failures as lessons. So here's the challenge for you this week. I want you to document your next failure, not just what went wrong, but what it really actually taught you. What market intelligence did you just get from it? What clarity did it give you? What strength did it build? Then you use the FAIL method in order to to set some parameters around how to fix this issue, right? Face it, analyze it, innovate solutions, leverage the lessons. And hey, if this episode resonated with you, if you have a friend or somebody close to you that is failing, has gone through something pretty crazy in business or in life, and you think that she needs to hear this, it would be awesome if you shared this episode with them so that we can support them in actually getting their breakthrough. So remember, the biggest failures are actually the gift to the biggest breakthroughs. Until next time, ladies, peace out.